I couldn't see anything, but the sound was like something from a horror movie. If I had to describe it, it was like a screeching door combined with someone learning to play the violin. The darkness made it challenging to walk away from the noise. I crouched down and covered my ears with my hands, hoping that no one or nothing would trip over me, and waited for the lights to turn on. With every passing second, panic built inside me. Even with my ears covered, I could hear the noise stop. All of a sudden, it was dead quiet, and I couldn't decide if it was worse or better than the noise. My breathing sounded loud in the silence, so I tried to hold my breath. The silence was deafening. That's when a woman screamed in the distance, and I decided to make my way through the darkness, away from the scream. Slowly I moved forward, step by step. My foot hit something, and I paused for a moment to see if it reacted. Then I reached out slowly towards it, and sighed with relief when I realized it was a wall. I turned my back towards the wall and slid sideways like a crab in the opposite direction of the scream, which it now became screams, plural. In the distance, I saw a light. Or was it just the hope inside me playing tricks with my mind? Nonetheless, I decided to move towards the light, seeing that it was in the direction I was heading anyway. I clung to the wall behind me as my only security and prayed it never ended. But then it did. I ran out of wall, and the faint light was still far away. I got onto my knees and started crawling. The floor became my new security instead of the wall. I reached forward, feeling the surroundings, and then followed with my knees. It felt like I was moving slower than a snail, and the light wasn't getting any closer. If only we didn't have to leave our phones at reception, I would have had light or could call someone. Wait, what? No floor? How was that possible? I reached forward, sideways, downwards, as far as my fear would allow me, and then realized stairs. I turned onto my bum and felt the next step under my foot. Slowly I went down the stairs, like a baby learning to walk. I was about 5 steps down when I realized I could no longer see the light, so it must have been on the upper level. I had a decision to make. What should I do? Go down the stairs? Or turn back and follow the light? I decided to continue down the stairs, as I suspected that an exit would be on the lower level. A familiar smell filled the air, the smell of coffee. Could it be? Or was it just the adrenaline making me crave my favorite drink? I was convinced of it and thought to myself, where there is coffee, there must be a kitchen. And where there is a kitchen, there must be a window or door, and even perhaps a flashlight. So I decided to follow my nose. I reached the end of the staircase and went back to my crawling technique to try and find another wall. Only a few crawls later and my fingers touched the wall. I switched to my crab style, sliding against the wall. A door. It was locked, so I continued. I heard faint dripping in the same direction as the coffee smell and was more convinced than ever that it could be a kitchen. What felt like 1,000,000 years later, I reached another door, and this time it was open. From the cold steel tops under my fingertips and the stronger smell of coffee, I knew I was right. This was indeed a kitchen. I followed the steel tops with my hands and opened a drawer to see if I could find the light. Ouch! I cut my finger on a sharp knife and realized that touching around in a dark kitchen is probably not a wise choice. Luckily, I felt something soft, like a cloth or apron perhaps, on the counter and rubbed it around my bleeding finger. I knew this because I licked it and could feel the burning heat of the blood running down my cold finger. Now, with only one hand, I continued my search for an exit. At last, I reached a door and eagerly flung it open, just to soon realize it was a pantry. Making my way back to the steel tops, I continued my search through the massive kitchen with its never-ending steel countertops. Another door. This time with less eagerness, I opened it slowly and made my way through it, feeling with my feet and my hands in front of me. Softness under my feet, a breeze against my cheek. I was outside. I wanted to dance and scream for joy when I suddenly realized that I was alone, and it was extremely dark and quiet. Where did everyone go? And why was the whole town's power out? Not even one single light anywhere? I sat down on the grass to think. I went through the events in my mind again. I was alone in the bathroom when the whole building shook and the power went out. The screams came from the hall where the people gathered, which is why I made my way in the opposite direction. I realized that I did not have enough information to figure out what happened and why it was still dark, but at least I knew why I was alone. But where did everybody go? And what should I do now? Making my way through the darkness outside with no walls and many more obstacles might be dangerous, although I could make out a few shapes outside in the moonlight. I had another decision to make. Should I try to find the entrance to the building and search for my phone at the reception desk? Or should I try to make my way home? Maybe I should try to make my way home in the dark. Chances are my phone won't work, given that all the power is out, but perhaps the flashlight on the phone will work, which would enable me to move quicker and get home. That's what I decided. I will try to get my phone. I deduced from the layout of the building that the kitchen door I exited from was at the back. So I slowly walked all along the wall around the building, careful not to trip and trying to remember what the front of the building looked like. I recalled that it had a large staircase with glass doors in the front, so I was trying to feel with my feet until I hit the steps, which I did after what felt like decades. I crawled up the steps and shuffled towards the glass doors. Oh no, the first door was locked. I shuffled further, second door locked too. Thank goodness the last door was open. Well, actually, it was shuttered, with just a big hole where the door used to be. My footsteps on the broken glass echoed through the silence of the dark night, and I cringed, thinking that something might have heard me. Shuffle, shuffle, I made my way forward as fast as I could. I just wanted to get out of there and as far away as possible. My foot hit the desk with a loud thump, and I paused for a moment to listen if I heard anything coming. Nothing, so I moved around the desk. I recalled the receptionist bent down and placed my cell phone under a desk somewhere, but I saw no boxes or containers down there. I decided to start feeling through the cupboards and drawers and found a safe hidden in one of the cupboards. I became very despondent because I was not a safe cracker, and my mind was scrambling for ways to access the safe. With a little hope, I turned the knob, hoping the power outage might have disabled the lock, but I was not that lucky. When I wanted to sit up to think, I hit my head against something under the desk. As I was trying to figure out what it was, I heard a click noise and bent forward to feel the safe again. It must have been a release button of some sort because the safe was open, and there it was, a bunch of cell phones. Now to find mine. In the dark, all the phones felt the same. I was about to cry from frustration when I remembered I painted my initials in glow-in-the-dark paint on the back of my phone under the cover. So I started taking off all the covers, and lo and behold, there it was, in bright yellow, E.G. I was elated and started pressing buttons to see if it worked. But my joy didn't last long. Nothing happened. It wouldn't even turn on. It was like the outage wasn't just power. It was like it took out all electronic equipment too. I felt like crawling under the desk and crying myself to sleep, wishing I would wake up from this nightmare. Then I saw it. The flashlight on the floor, in the corner of my eye, against the wall I was sitting. The moonlight was shining on it, as if the universe wanted me to find it. It was a big, long black light like the one security guards use. With very little faith, I pressed the button. And I gasped as I suddenly saw light, as if it was for the first time in my life. It was very bright. I realized that using it would definitely help me get home quicker, but it also turned me into a moving target for anyone that was perhaps watching. As I stood there, contemplating my options, I realized that I had to weigh the risks of each choice carefully. Running home with a flashlight might make me a target, but it would also get me home much faster, while shuffling in the dark would be safer, but take much longer. I took a deep breath and made up my mind. I decided to take my chances with a flashlight and run as fast as I could. I knew it was risky, but I couldn't shake the feeling that I needed to get home as quickly as possible. After all, I was the school's short-distance athletics champion 2 years in a row. I turned on the flashlight and started sprinting down the street, my heart pounding in my chest. The beam of the flashlight illuminated the path ahead of me, and I could see everything in vivid detail. It was both exhilarating and terrifying at the same time. My house wasn't too far. Another block, one street down, and I would be there. I kept telling myself this as my lungs burned and my heart pounded in my ears. Just one more street, I told myself, while feeling my legs grow heavier from fatigue. There it was, my front door. I zoomed in on it like a laser target and ran with all my might. I realized that the door would be locked, so while running, I looked for stones or bricks to use to break a window. I picked up a rock from the neighbor's rock garden and threw it at the lounge window. I am a good runner, but throwing and catching was never my strong suit. So, of course, I missed the window, and the rock shattered a pot plant under it. I panicked, not just for the noise, but also for missing the window. I picked up the rock to try again when my eye caught a shiny object in the soil of the shattered pot. It was a spare key. Thank you, Mum, for always planning ahead, I thought to myself. Relieved that I didn't have to make another noise, I picked it up, unlocked the door, and fell down on the couch in the lounge. I don't know how long I was lying there trying to catch my breath before I could focus and think straight again. It's strange how a familiar surrounding can make one feel safe. I knew that the danger was still out there, but just being home made me feel invincible. I got up from the couch and started investigating each room to see if I could find any evidence of life. Where were my parents? Where was our dog? Was any electronics working? Was anything missing from our house? Were there any signs of breaking and entering? Nothing. I found nothing. No people, no working electronics. But I did find our dog curled up in a little ball behind a tree in the backyard. Strangely enough, she was quiet. She didn't even make a noise when she saw me. She just came running towards me, wagging her tail. I was delighted to have some company, even if it wasn't human. We locked ourselves in the house and tried to barricade the windows with furniture. I went through the kitchen cupboards to see how long we would be able to survive on the contents. We would have to eat the stuff in the fridge first, as it would go off soon. Luckily, it was late autumn, so the weather wasn't so hot anymore. By my calculations, we could survive around 5 days with what was in the house. That day was the longest day of my life, so I was hoping I wouldn't have to live another 5 like that. It was time to draft a plan of action. We needed to solve this mystery. What was the thing that shook the building? Or I suppose the whole town? Or perhaps the whole planet? Where did all the people go? But I was too exhausted and fell asleep on the couch with our dog in my arms until the first sunlight woke me the next day. I got up and peeked through the window to see if I spotted any movement. Everything looked so different in the daylight, so normal, so not scary. The one thing I did have a lot of was time, so I thought to myself, no rush to get out there and face reality. Let's take it slow. Breakfast was my first priority. Anything from the fridge that didn't need cooking. Then I remembered that we had a camp stove in the garage somewhere, which should work if the gas wasn't empty. I wouldn't mind a cup of tea or scrambled eggs. It took me a while to find the camp stove in the garage, but I eventually did. Unfortunately, I discovered that the gas canister was empty. Now I had a decision to make. Should I venture into the outside world and try to obtain gas from the corner store, or wait another day and make do with what I had in the house? My craving for scrambled eggs got the better of me, so I decided to go to the store. Before leaving, I locked my dog in the bathroom to ensure she wouldn't follow me, and then headed out with the key in my pocket. On my way to the store, I knocked on every door to see if anyone was there, but no one answered. I felt sorry for the animals, but I didn't know how to help them. As I continued, I realized I no longer felt scared and started to think I might be the only person left. When I arrived at the store, there were no people inside, and everything seemed normal, except for the absence of the usual pop music. I quickly headed to the hardware aisle and grabbed some canisters of gas and bottled water, as much as I could carry. I debated whether taking a trolley and filling it up would be considered stealing, since I was the only one there,
but I ultimately decided to do so. As I left the store, I couldn't help peeking at the security cameras, wondering if anyone was watching. I hurried back home, eager to enjoy my scrambled eggs, which had now turned into lunch. With no TV, phone, or internet, I wondered what people did in the old days when they had no technology to keep them occupied. I only had my dog for company, but I decided to make a list of things I could do to keep myself busy. I spent the rest of the afternoon planning for the next day and considering returning to the hall to investigate during daylight, although I wasn't quite ready to face my fears yet. I attended a seminar that all grade 8 students had to go to that day. The topic was about AI and its impact on our future, and a scientist was going to reveal a new app that could revolutionize the world. While I knew it was far-fetched, I couldn't help but imagine the worst-case scenario, like the app taking over the world or contacting aliens who abducted everyone. But why I was the only one left behind, I couldn't understand. Not that I was complaining. I decided to walk to the hospital to see if there were any signs of trauma or something unusual happening. Since it was a long walk and I knew I'd only return after dark, I packed a backpack and brought my dog with me. I felt much safer with her by my side. During my long walk, I lost track of time since my watch wasn't working. At the hospital, I couldn't learn anything new, but my dog started pulling on her leash. I followed her, and she led me to a distant location where I heard scratching noises. I let go of her leash and followed her from a distance. As we walked upstairs and down a dark corridor, my dog led me into a ward, and under the second bed on the left, she stopped. And I wondered why she wasn't barking, as she usually does when she finds something. It was as if she knew making noise was dangerous. I watched as she crawled under the bed, and then a rat ran out, and I breathed a sigh of relief. Just a rat. But my dog continued to pull on something under the bed, something heavy. I had to make a decision. Run away and hope my dog followed me, or look under the bed and help my dog drag out whatever was under there. My first instinct was to run away, but my curiosity got the better of me, so I slowly made my way over to the bed and bent down to see what it was that intrigued my dog. In my mind, I saw a green alien hand or a doctor's coat, so you can imagine my relief when it was a suitcase. I helped my dog drag it out from under the bed and opened it up. It was a machine with blinking lights and antennas, almost like a huge Wi-Fi router. Blinking lights? No other devices or electronics were working, so this was indeed strange. I tried to lift it up to see if there were markings or an on-off switch, but it was too heavy to lift. My instincts told me that it must have had something to do with electricity being off, seeing that it was the only functioning device. My conclusion was that I needed to switch it off or destroy it. I was looking for something heavy to hit it with, but couldn't see anything around. I decided to push it down the stairs. I couldn't lift it, so my dog was pulling on the one side and I was pushing from the other, and slowly we made our way out the door, down the corridor, and to the edge of the staircase. I paused for a moment to stretch my back, and then with all my might, I pushed it over the edge. The moment it hit the ground and shattered into pieces, the lights went on. I was right. The device must have been some sort of signal scrambler. It was wonderful to hear music and white noise and have working lights. I went back to the room to see if I could find any information on who the patient was in that bed. The patient card only read John Doe, and from the scribbles in medical terms, I could only make out that the cause of his condition was unknown. It was clear to me that this patient had something to do with the incident. The people didn't appear miraculously when the machine was destroyed, so John Doe was not working alone. As it was getting dark, I hurried back home and enjoyed being able to make toast and watch YouTube before going to bed. There was nothing broadcasting on television. The next day, I returned to the hall where it all began to see if I could find any evidence. I retraced my steps from the kitchen entrance, but couldn't find anything different from the day I was there. I went up to the stage where the presenter was standing and looked through his notes, but they were too cryptic to mean anything to me. His laptop was gone, though. It seemed to have disappeared with him. I could see a black mark on the table next to him where the AI device was going to be demonstrated. It was a burn mark, as if there was an explosion or something. This must have been the reason the building shook and why everyone was screaming. Other than this, I couldn't find anything else. I spent the whole day scouring the place inside and out for clues, but with no luck. On my way home, I stopped at the store to get some supplies. The pop music playing for nobody lifted my spirits, and even though I was the only person there, I didn't feel alone. I still felt guilty for taking things without paying, but what other choice did I have? Back home, I played with my dog and made supper. Well, if you can count 2-minute noodles as supper, which is about the full extent of my cooking abilities. I played some games on my phone and went to bed. I did try calling and sending messages to my parents, but although they went through, I received no replies. As I was drifting off, I heard a noise outside. I was suddenly wide awake and held my breath, trying to listen for more clues. I couldn't hear anything else and concluded that it must have been my dog. But I couldn't fall back to sleep. I knew I was the only human around, so it must have been an animal, unless the humans had returned. I tossed and turned, and seeing that I couldn't fall asleep, I decided to get up and investigate the noise. I first peeked through the windows and grabbed my flashlight to go outside. As I turned the corner, flashlight in a sweaty hand and heart pounding, my dog came running towards me with a wagging tail and a dove in her mouth. I usually scold her for catching doves, but I was too relieved to find the source of the noise to say anything. I looked around a little bit more, kind of wishing that a human would appear from the darkness. It had been 3 days since I last saw other people, and I wondered if this was going to be my lonely life from now on. I went back inside and straight to bed. I was too awake to sleep, and I was thinking about how I would survive the rest of my life alone. It was the first time that I felt lonely and sad. I didn't have any hope that I would be able to solve this mystery, and started to accept the fact that I was the last human left on Earth. It made me think of that movie where the aliens abducted all the humans and relocated them, and that girl was the only one left with her cat. The resemblance was uncanny, so I tried to find the movie online to watch it again. Perhaps it could give me some ideas. I smiled at the thought of maybe finding a solution in an animated movie. I have no idea how long I was watching for, but eventually drifted off before the end of the movie and before finding any solutions for my situation. It was a dreamless sleep, and I woke up with the sun already high in the sky. I had no plans for this day, and I thought to myself that I better find something to do, or I would drive myself crazy. After breakfast, I put my dog on a leash and decided to stroll down to the school. I missed my friends and thought it would be nice to hang around the school and remember them. It was so strange to find the school so quiet. It was always so busy and noisy. Apart from a few stray cats, I was the only one there. I went to the school cafeteria to get some of those sour sweets I liked so much. I felt like a thief again, but enjoyed the candy too much to care. I sat on the pavilion and pretended to be watching a cricket game. I found a soccer ball under one of the benches and played with it on the field. My dog enjoyed this thoroughly. Exhausted, I fell down on my back under the trees and must have drifted off for a while because when I woke up, it was almost dark. I hurried back home and noticed all the houses with their lights on as if someone was home. It felt normal, like everyone was just going on about their lives. I decided to stop by my friend's house just to check things out and because I missed her. The back door was open, so I went inside and looked around, careful not to invade their privacy too much. I went to her room, fed her fish, and sat at her desk for a few minutes, just remembering some good times we had. I started crying and ran home, tears flooding down my face. I couldn't stop it. I sobbed myself to sleep that night. I woke up the next morning with a headache from all the crying and was very hungry as I didn't have anything to eat for supper. I made a big bowl of cereal and sat on the step of our porch eating it with my dog, who was waiting for the last bit of milk that I always leave for her. What should I do today? Should I just hang around the house and enjoy a gaming day? Or should I get on my bicycle and visit the mall? The idea of going to the mall by myself was exciting, as I was never allowed to go there alone. I understand why, as I too have heard stories of children being kidnapped or abused, but seeing that I was the only human around, I was sure it would be okay. At the mall, everything seemed normal at first. Music was playing, lights were flashing, and with no queues, it was quite nice to go about doing my own thing. I tried on clothes and listened to music. I looked at jewelry and smelled some perfume. I didn't take anything as it just didn't feel right. Food was a different story. That was for survival, but taking clothes or jewelry would just feel too much like stealing. Even when I saw that jacket I always wanted but couldn't afford, I didn't take it and felt proud of myself for resisting the temptation. I was a bit hesitant to eat fresh food as it had been standing for too long, and I didn't want to get sick, so I treated myself to ready-made things like Pop-Tarts and muffins. As long as it passed the sniff test, I felt that it was safe to eat. I didn't think it was possible to spend a full day at the mall. Under normal circumstances, I would never enjoy it and would be the one nagging my mother to go home. I was glad that she wasn't around to witness this, as I would never have heard the end of it. On my way home, I stopped at my father's workplace and sat at his desk, pretending to be him. I tried hacking his PC, but I couldn't guess his password. He was always good at that. I used the past tense. No, I shouldn't lose hope. I'm sure they will return, or they will get the aliens to fetch me. I can just imagine my mother driving my father mad with plans and solutions to the calamity. I smiled at the thought. If only she was here to help me solve this mess. I missed my parents terribly. I pushed my bike home, as I was in no hurry to return. I felt my throat was a bit scratchy, so I stopped at the store and got some cough drops, vitamin C and water. After a long bath and a plate full of scrambled eggs with toast, I curled up with my dog on the couch and fell asleep. I had the strangest dream. I dreamt that I was in the hospital having my tonsils removed. I could see myself in the hospital bed with my teddy in my arms. I felt my throat hurt and saw the bright lights through my eyelids. I felt my mother rubbing my back and my father holding my hand. I could even smell the sanitizer and feel the cold, hard sheets over my legs. I blinked a few times and heard my father say, "She's awake." It was so nice to hear his voice. "Ella?" I heard my mother calling me from afar. Her voice sounded concerned. "Ella, are you awake?" I didn't want to wake up, because then this dream would be over, and I had to return to the reality of me being all alone. I was enjoying having my parents with me and couldn't help but smile. I had to go to the bathroom, so I couldn't continue pretending to sleep any longer, and I opened my eyes reluctantly. There they were, both my parents. Was this real? Could it be? Or was I still dreaming? I saw that I was really holding my teddy and couldn't remember it the night before. I turned to see where my dog was and saw that I was really in the hospital. Now this can't be. Was I dreaming the whole time? Or is this still part of my dream? "Bathroom," I whispered, and heard my voice sounding all weird and my throat hurt. My mother helped me to the bathroom, and when I felt the cold hospital floor under my bare feet, I knew I wasn't dreaming anymore. I felt so confused and couldn't help asking my mother, "Are you real?" She laughed and said I was just feeling confused because of the anesthetics. I tried to remember how I got there, but all I could remember was the 3 days I spent home alone as the only living person. That felt more real than the hospital to me. After a few hours of sleep, I woke up and felt less confused and started to accept that I did perhaps dream all of it. I still couldn't believe how vivid my dream was and wasn't sure if I should tell my parents or perhaps just write it down, as no one would believe me. Perhaps it did really happen, and everything just returned back to normal mysteriously overnight. I must find clues. I decided to first find some proof before telling them about my experience, as it would be harder to convince them, and to be honest, at that point, I needed some convincing myself. It was reality tonsillectomy versus reality alien abduction.